Hey there guys and gals, Anime Dude here, and today we're going to have a short video talking about a series that I never expected to love nearly as much as I actually do, nor did I ever expect to love it due to the reasons that I do. Likewise, this is going to be a video where you shouldn't dismiss me right off the bat, however badly you may want to. So without any further ado, let's talk about this show where a boy falls in love with his sisters. Anyways, back in my video on why you should watch Oregaru, I described the plot of a show aside from Oregaru in order to emphasize the fact that some high school series thrive off of simply taking situations that we can all relate to on some level and making them far more dramatic than they'd ever be in real life. The description I had of that show went a little something like this. Like, why have a boy with a crush when you could have a boy who has a crush on his teacher, but then sleeps with a girl at a mixer, only to find out his dad is getting remarried and the girl he slept with and his teacher are not only sisters, but they're his new stepsisters, and since we haven't gone far enough yet, they're all going to be moving in together almost instantly, and holy cow, that is only episode 1. This video isn't even about that show, but try to tell me that doesn't draw you in or at least make you curious. Well, this video is about that show, and yeah, I'm aware of how trashy it sounds. I mean, that sounds so trashy, you'd probably have to compare it to like a flaming dumpster or something like that if you want to be accurate. You know what? I think that works. Flaming dumpster seems original enough. I'm sure no one has ever used that to describe this show before. Look at me, being all smart and creative. But back to the Siscon show. This series is called Domestic Girlfriend, and since I've read the manga in between making that last video and now, I want to expand upon that overly simplified and spicy plot summary from earlier. In doing so, hopefully I can convince you that there's much more to the series than initially meets the eye, and that even for those that aren't drawn in by the melodramatic start, it's arguably worth watching and or reading. That's not to say that this series isn't melodramatic, it definitely is, and the thing it reminds me of the most is the manga for Kimi no Iru Machi, which I talked about in my Koji Seo video. There's something special that separates this series apart from most others and places it alongside Kimi no Iru Machi in my mind. That being said, I want to clarify that I don't view the word melodrama with any sort of negative connotation attached, and I find those two series in particular to be examples of where melodrama was used exceptionally well. You see, a melodramatic series is one that uses exaggerated characters and exciting events that are intended to appeal to your emotions, and there's plenty of terrible examples of that out there that fall flat on their face. However, when a series fails like that, I often find it to be because they overly rely on those exciting events and plot twists, using them as a crutch rather than a tool. Going back to Domestic Girlfriend in particular, it starts the series out by placing the characters into a rather unique, complex, and messed up position, utilizing an exciting event after exciting event in order to draw the audience in. In that sense, it's not much different than most melodramas. I can almost guarantee you that most of the people that initially watched or read this probably expected it to be a hot mess. They likely tuned in with low expectations, put it on a short leash, and then waited to see how big of a dumpster fire it would become. Or, you know, at least that's what I did. However, while this series basically is an anime soap opera, what separates it from most others is that it doesn't skimp out when it comes to fleshing out each of the characters, which gives you a reason to care whenever they go through those various twists and turns. While I don't plan on going over each character in detail by any means, just know that most of them become pretty likable over time, even if they come across as annoying at first. I'm aware that I'm likely going to be oversimplifying things so as to avoid spoilers, but basically the world doesn't revolve around or pander to the characters, and seeing each of their journeys as they learn more about the world and chase their dreams is pretty amazing. I just love it when a series does that. To elaborate a bit, I guess I should start by saying that just like Kimi no Iru Machi, this isn't just a series about high school drama, and the lives of the characters continue on after their school days are over. Or at least they do in the manga. Unless this series gets a season 2, I definitely recommend the manga. But the anime opening was a banger, my favorite of 2019 in fact. So while I personally love this series in any way it can be consumed, I personally recommend reading the manga while listening to the songs from the anime. You can just thank me later. Moving on, Natsuo, the main character, is a writer. And while I'm already extremely biased when it comes to loving characters that enjoy writing and creating or whatever, what is really cool about Natsuo is that we get a lot of insight into his worldview through his writing. Well, I mean, I guess it is a form of self-expression after all, so that's pretty self-evident, but the way that it's integrated into the narrative of the overarching story is fascinating. The feedback that he gets on his stories leads us to believe that initially, the strongest aspect of his stories is the exploration of his main characters, which represents his exploration of self. Even his early works that seem successful only ever expand into the small world that surrounds the protagonists in his stories. However, after high school, he meets a lot more people and builds up life experiences in order to expand his worldview. That, in turn, helps to propel him towards his dream of becoming a better writer. Again, I'm not going to spoil anything specific, but as this happens, other characters pursue what they want out of life as well. And by that, I don't just mean the main character. As our cast goes about their lives, they deal with issues regarding racism, sexuality, drugs, etc. I don't want to focus too much on any of that, but even if the resolution to whatever issue they may face isn't necessarily the way you wanted it to be, the point is that it helps to give the characters experience with aspects of our world that would have likely stayed foreign to them otherwise. The characters are constantly growing as individuals, chasing what they want out of life, and all the while they try to account for the emotions of their loved ones. The situation they're placed in can make that hard at times, but aside from dumb stuff some of them do early on in order to enhance that initial melodramatic spice, there's a lot of times where their actions are so understandable. Even things that seem like they're going to be a cheap source of conflict later on are just blown over, not because of bad writing, but rather because of trust. With trust, insignificant misunderstandings aren't blown out of proportion for drama's sake, or at least it seemed to me that annoying stuff like that happens less and less as the series goes on. That takes us back a bit to how I earlier said that most of the characters are likable, and I think it's because while they all have their own issues, most of them are good people at heart. They're just simply dealing with the hand that they were dealt. In particular, the main plot consists of a love triangle between the three main step-siblings, which is a pretty difficult hand all its own. After all, you can't choose who you fall in love with. The human heart is a very fickle and complicated thing, and as Natsuo attempts to explore the subtleties of it through his writing, we also do so through the relationships we witness. I don't think it's a stretch to say that this series could have arguably gone down a much worse path, but one thing I love about this series is that Natsuo never goes out of his way to try to get his dick wet. In fact, he even goes out of his way to not get it wet on multiple occasions. He's a genuinely nice guy that cares for his friends and loved ones, and despite giving into his desires at times, he's a hopeless romantic who follows his heart. So, even when relationships become complicated due to romance and non-blood related incest and whatnot, you really do understand why it is he does what he does. In fact, I find Natsuo to be one of the most interesting characters in recent anime. Alright, hear me out. Starting with the fact that he sleeps with a girl he just met early into the first episode or chapter or whatever, and then moving on to the fact that his romantic interests are chock full of common taboos like his teacher or stepsister or whatever. The point is, I think we as the audience are supposed to start out judging him. However, the more he matures and the more we get to know him, or at least the more I got to know him, the more he genuinely made me want to be a better person. Regardless, moving on to the waifu wars, you'll undoubtedly start the series preferring one stepsister over the other. We all did. But while all three of the main characters are guilty of hurting the others at various points throughout the series, I can't think of one time where it wasn't out of good intentions, and I can't overemphasize the importance of that. Now that I've had the time to witness all these characters get fleshed out over the course of the series, I don't necessarily have one girl I prefer over the other. I'm past that. I genuinely don't care. I just want them all to be happy and do what it is they all want. I know that that's basically an impossible outcome. This is one of the more recent series to make me cry actual tears. Manly tears, of course, but tears nonetheless. This doesn't seem like that type of series from the outside looking in, and while it's not what I expected when going into it, what I've discussed in this video is undoubtedly the reason I'm happy I gave it a chance. Sure, Domestic Girlfriend might not be a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, and it's definitely pretty trashy, not to mention a guilty pleasure if there ever was one. But it's still enjoyable as all hell, and I feel like way too many people blow it off before they see what it can really do. And that is why you should watch/read Domestic Girlfriend. Watch it with your sister. With your stepsister. Okay, don't watch it with your stepsister, but still watch it. Unless she's down to watch it with you, in which case record the reaction video to that because I definitely want to see it. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to leave a like, and Delaware, smash that subscribe button. Also, thank you to Jessica, Shelly, and everyone else over on Patreon for helping to make videos like this possible. If you want to join these mad lads right here over in the Patreon crew and get your name at the end of videos like this, then I will leave a link to that down in the description. If you still don't feel like this is the series for you, then feel free to check out some of my other Why You Should Watch videos instead. I'm trying to eventually do one on each series that I personally think is worth watching, with extra emphasis given to the series that could easily be looked over or missed. With that being said, I'm sure we can find something for you, regardless of whether you're a new anime fan or a veteran weeb. Thank you all for watching, and Anime Dude out.